Welcome to the Volunteer Youth Worker podcast. Youth ministries rise and fall on the volunteers, so we are here to encourage and equip you. Join the conversation as we tackle the practical questions you are asking so you can help the next generation know Jesus.
All right, before we jump into today's conversation, I've got Anton and Rolf from Power to Change, and you guys want to give away a lot of money. Thousands of dollars, in fact. That's correct?
That's true. We have an opportunity for youth leaders to play a role in students getting extra funding for their school.
That's right. I suppose our volunteers that are listening, we're not looking to hand out cash directly to them, although we wish we could do that for you all. But you guys honestly do have thousands of dollars that you want to get into the hands of our students. So volunteers, you've got students who are graduating out of your ministries. You guys, Anton and Rolf, Power to Change, tell us a little bit about this whole awards thing. You've been running it for a couple of years. And what is this thing that you need us to talk about with our students?
The Next Steps Awards is basically encouraging the student to really think through their transition to post-secondary. This has kind of come out of some research where we recognize it is a really tumultuous time for students where for many of them, unfortunately, they're kind of begin to drift away from the church. And we really want to change that narrative and put some tools in your hands as a youth leader to be able to move forward at helping students take the right steps as they go to post-secondary. So they they have 5 questions that they fill in, so it's not based on their marks or their credentials, but as they fill in those questions that they're really thinking through, where has my faith journey been going? How do I integrate my faith with my studies that are heading? And I think one of the things we really love about it is there's a peer reference and also a leader reference. So they'll actually be asking you to answer some questions on their behalf. And probably as you take a look at those few questions, it'll realize like, oh, actually, I kind of want to check in with this student to find out where are they really at with this? What are they struggling? What are their big questions? And so we hope that even just the process of this award, the student is primed where they're like, yes, I want to have that conversation with you, Mr. My leader or my mentor, and that as you have that conversation to really kind of journey alongside them. And I think students really need someone to believe in them, and we want to change that narrative from students kind of being lost from youth group to really being sent. And I know that's your heart. And so hopefully both the incentive of money that the parents even really, I think, enjoy that opportunity that they're willing to kind of lean in and help that. And also just these questions and the whole context allows and nurtures those discipleship conversations that we know is your heart.
I love that. That's absolutely brilliant. And so, Anton, for anybody listening, if we know of somebody, is it just for grade 12 students that we're talking about?
Yes, primarily right now the awards are for students heading to college or university in Canada. And so
So what about if they're like they did a gap year, they stayed home, they worked at the family business, whatever, and now they're ready to go? Do they qualify?
Totally. They could totally apply. It's anyone that is planning to start college or university in Canada in the fall of 2024 and for full-time students. And so it's open to them. And so we're excited to give them a chance to consider what their next steps are. We firmly believe that kind of major next steps into someone's faith journey happens in the context of community, and we want to encourage and foster and give students a practical opportunity to make those type of connections.
Yeah, and I think this is helpful. So many of our leaders maybe don't realize, but when we do send our students to the next thing, university, jobs, new city, that kind of stuff, the great news is that there's a group of Christians who are in that community already and would be just so happy to receive and engage your kid, your student into community there. And so I love the work that you guys have done. And so we'll link, obviously, the Next Steps Award in the show notes, but also let's make sure we'll put in a way for them to find all of the different university campuses that you guys are at already. And so if we know, hey, I got a student going to such and such a campus, that, hey, those Christian groups that are there would love to make a connection with your student wherever they're coming from.
Yeah.
Anything else go ahead.
Likewise, we love what youth leaders and youth ministry does because you guys have invested so much time and so much energy and prayers and tears and money into the faith steps and the faith formation of students. And we want to see that continue when students head off to college and university. We want to see them in a position where they can grow in their faith, that they can help others take next steps and discover Jesus. And again, we want to see this across Canada. And so whether that be a student that a youth worker has been working with since they've been in grade 9, or a student who has just come to faith, or someone who's just still, even a student who's still exploring Jesus. They haven't made any decisions about Jesus, but they're curious. We want to even help those students apply for these awards, because we really want to foster and encourage students to take their next steps, regardless of where they find themselves in the kind of faith spectrum or faith journey. We want to encourage them to continue to take steps towards Jesus.
And I think what
That's great.
excites us is for those leaders who have made that step, the research has actually shown us that there's 4 times greater likelihood. Like if you help kind of bridge that connection with a group like Power to Change, InterVarsity, or Navigators, or a local church in what community they're going to, or even if they're staying within the city, to help bridge those connections, students are actually 4 times more likely to stay connected with a Christian community, a Christian group. And so, yeah, any efforts that you can have to bridge those connections, it will be a tremendous benefit to your students.
That's great. Any last words from you guys before we send people to the links in the show notes?
Some important deadlines would be May 15th is our first deadline. And so students have to start the application and submit it by May 15th. And unique to this year, though, is that we recognize that some students might not hear about it or might not get it done. And so we even actually have a second deadline that happens in August. And so we'll be kind of giving away some awards after the first deadline. And then there's still a few handfuls of awards that we'll be issuing to students that apply sometime in the summertime, or students that don't get it in on time. So yeah, you can find out more about the Next Step Awards at p2c.com, or sorry, p2c.sh/next steps.
Awesome. We'll send a link for that in the notes, and appreciate the work that you guys are doing. This is super helpful for us, and we'll be sure to spread the word. All right, episode 216 of the Volunteer Youth Worker podcast. We've got a question today, Sid, from our friend Will Demetrio, youth pastor in
How much do we love Will, Jer? Come
Saskatoon, and we love Saskatoon, which is wonderful. And so Will's actually local church youth pastor. We've chatted with him lots about ministry and has a bunch of questions. He also has some ideas on guests, and so we're going to get into a lot of that because we love hearing from you. So let me start by saying we love hearing.
Jer, what we want to say is, why don't we all just be a little more like Will right now and fire up some more questions and thoughts, and let's go, community.
Yeah,
let's go.
So you can email them to me. I put my email in the show notes. You can text them to me. My number is 249-385-5753.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Jer's cell number's right out there on the internet right now. I love it. Are you kidding me?
It's easy.
Let's go.
But the point is we want to answer practical questions that you ask as a volunteer. So these are volunteer style questions, and Will kind of gather some up from his group, which is awesome. I usually go to my buddy because I've been in vocational ministry, but I have some friends that are volunteers, and the questions are brilliant that you guys have. So let us know because it helps shape our conversations.
Yeah, and volunteer youth workers, you're making an eternal difference. You're the priesthood of all believers. Are you kidding me right now? Positioned in the most significant relational roles with kids for the most important work. We love you guys. Come on, let's go.
So let's do this one. This is a fun little question. It's how can you coach other small group leaders? And the idea here is that if you've been in ministry for more than a few years, you look around, you realize, oh, I might actually be a veteran in my context. Maybe not all contexts, but in lots of contexts, you've got experience. And so when you notice that there are other group leaders that could benefit from maybe some of the lessons that you've learned, how do you actually coach them? That's kind of like that informal coaching of the people that are also serving with you. And then the other side, the side of the conversation that we'll get to, is there's a formal idea of perhaps because of your experience, you've been put in a coaching role. Maybe you're the small group director. Maybe you're a volunteer still, but you're overseeing a group of other volunteers. So informally and formally, how can you coach other other small group leaders. Which one do you want to start with, Sid?
Yeah, let's go with informal. And Jared, as we talk, you know me, I'm going to go to the 30,000 foot level, and then you're going to go down right to the practical level, and together we're going to make this thing helpful. And here's a couple of things that I just think right off the bat. First of all, I think your culture in your youth ministry leadership will play a really significant role in your ability to be able to coach. And here's what I mean by that. Like if you have a culture as a team where you're all about learning together and you're really committed to going, hey, how do we continue to be more effective with what God's calling us to do? And then there's like this wonderful trust and humility with each other. That's going to be a space where coaching, peer-to-peer coaching is going to be really invited, or informal coaching is going to be invited because you're going to be learning together. And Jared, here's what I would say. If as a volunteer in a ministry, if you're kind of going, man, I know there's a lot we could be better and we could learn together better. I wonder if the more mature leaders start by maybe asking a few questions, in fact. You know what I mean? Like opening the door to say, hey, we want to be a team that learns together. And I'm always amazed that when we ask questions, it actually positions us, when we become curious, to have authority or opportunity to influence others as well. So that's like just a 30,000 foot level thing, Jared, is where we go, let's just have a disposition of teachability. Let's foster that, which will create opportunities for us to continue to learn from each other and, use our experience to help influence others to be better at what God's called them to do.
Yeah, I think you said two things, so let's go to each of them. So fostering teachability and then asking questions. So on the first point, I'm like, if I'm wanting to coach other small group leaders, I start with modeling my own personal teachability. And so I immediately go to my peer, Pat. So Pat's a pastor at our church.
Brilliant.
We're on contract with my local church. So I've got an office 2 doors down from Pat. And so Pat's always texting me, hey, I listened to this podcast. Here's this interesting church idea. Yeah. Hey, have you ever thought about it? And Pat's constantly learning, and he's not telling me I need to learn, but he's saying I'm learning so much from this resource or this concept, and his teachability is so high, it makes me want to also learn.
Right. Exactly right. Nailed it. 100%.
So
yeah.
I think
Pat's actually building a culture with your staff of a real growth mindset and this real desire to learn and together, which it's amazing to me, Jer, how when we have that kind of humble, open position, first of all, we become better, which automatically gives us authority to help others. Do you know what I mean? But it also creates this openness to say, come speak into my life as well. This is safe. This is how we do this together. I think it's really beautiful. Great. That's one. Yeah.
Okay. So if we're informally coaching other small group leaders, we actually start with creating the culture of teachability, which means I'm telling and sharing, hey, I'm learning a little bit more about how to be better at this, or I listened to this podcast, or, I tried a different idea with my students, and just you talking about that with your other leaders, that's really helpful. That the second thing you said is you can ask questions. What kind of questions would you ask, Sid, either in a leader huddle or in a conversation afterwards that would help us actually, help other small group leaders?
So when I first said ask questions, I think at first I was thinking more towards what we just talked about as well. I'm going to be curious. So if I'm curious, it gives other people permission to be curious. And especially if you're a veteran, you've been there for a while, the new people are looking to you to kind of set the example of how we're going to be. So if you're asking questions, they're go, that's awesome. I can ask the questions too. There's not dumb questions. That's the thinking that I have when I'm talking about modeling asking questions. But there's a couple of other types of questions that I think can be helpful. And you have to be careful. This has to be authentic, of course. But I want to ask
no bait
questions.
And switch. It's
no bait
authentically.
And switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So when I'm together in a group, perhaps, or with point leader, I might ask question, hey, remind me again, what's our goal in our small groups? What are we actually shooting for? So it's really hard to coach someone or even to become better if you don't really know what you're shooting for. And so even as a veteran youth worker, you can help, you can create space that clarifies what it is you're actually trying to attain in your small groups, which now allows for coaching. It'll open the door for other questions. It helps create healthy curiosity. And we are always asking that question. Jared, we're in meetings all the time. You're a great one that's always asking the question, hey, what's our why here? What are we actually about? And that can become a little bit uncomfortable at times, but it's so important if we're going to steward this important opportunity that God has given us to continue to fight for clarity in that area. So I would just say again, Jer, like as a veteran volunteer youth worker, even to yourself, you're going to want to have times where you're just asking the question, okay, what exactly is it that we're shooting for? So Jer, I sat down with a youth pastor the other day, and he just said, our goal is to have great small groups. I said, oh, that's a fantastic goal. I said, what does a great small group actually look like for you? And so if we can begin to keep asking that question, now we'll be able to like coach each other, help each other out to actually move towards attaining a clarified goal for our small group time.
Yeah. Okay. So foster teachability. Ask some big questions around like, hey, what's the goal? What is your goal? Hey, when you showed up here tonight, what were you hoping to happen in your small group? So you're not even, this is the funny part about coaching, which I absolutely love. Yeah. You're not giving advice at all, really, until the person is interested in it. But you can spark their interest by asking the questions.
Yeah, and Jared, this is why I love you, because I'm actually not really interested at all. If you're interested in what I have to say, I'm telling you anyway. So like you and I, we work together just great. So you're interested, you want to know what, I'm just like, no, I'm telling you, man. I don't even care if you want to know. So listen to Jared. Everyone, be like Jared. WW Jared do. There we go.
No. Okay, so the third thing on that informal bit is you can go from the bigger question, I think, and it made me think of the specific question if you want to informally coach another small group leader. And this is a little bait and switch, so just be cautious on this. But if you're recognizing like, oh, that person has no ability to manage their small group, like it's loud, kids are disengaging all the time, you might ask them the question, something like, and again, you have to be open about it, has to be honest, but like, hey, what do you use to kind of manage your group or like keep people focused and attentive when you're leading? Do you have some good ideas and resources on that? I would love to learn and hear from you, but also because sometimes even though you are pressing right on the issue, that gives them the freedom to say, oh, I'm trying this, but it's not working. Or I'm really trying to make this more of like a permissive experience. And so I thought that we weren't allowed to say no to kids or whatever the thing is. It opens the conversation around the issue that you want, but done a little bit more of like a sideways kind of sliding into the conversation without like really pointing the finger at them. Hey, you know how you've never prayed in your small group? This is an evil, awful thing. No, it's like, hey, how do you prioritize spiritual growth for your students? And they're like, oh, I never actually thought about that. Oh, perfect. I kind of noticed that. Here's some ideas for you. That's maybe where that can go.
Well, and Jared, let me bounce off that just a little bit too. One more, maybe more informal type piece to the puzzle. If you're a veteran small group leader, volunteer small group leader, I think we would like to encourage you, Jerry, you say this all the time, to like own the fact that you're actually the expert in the room. And we would say to you, like, lean into the opportunity God's given you to influence, especially younger small group leaders. In fact, I would encourage you to, take a small group leader or two out for coffee, ask them the questions in that environment, come alongside and support. And we really believe, of course, like, hey, what we get to do with students directly, that's what makes our engines run. But for some of you, your greater kingdom impact might be influencing 3 or 4 small group leaders who will then, for like the next generation, like literally the next years, influence another 10 to 20 students. And we would just encourage you to continue to own that wonderful kind of next stage of your journey where you intentionally look to coach up a few younger volunteer small group leaders and just own that role. I think that God's probably growing you into. So yeah, we love that.
Yeah. Do we have a couple of ideas for a formal? So maybe you're a volunteer, but you've been formally put in charge of small groups. You would probably use those first 3 things, but is there another layer that we can offer them for coaching?
I think so. So one of the things that I think about, Jerry, you and I both think about it, like when we're looking at helping work with the ministry, we're asking questions like, what's our culture? We've already said that. Do we have a culture of teachability? But then we also look at the structure. Hey, have we put in place times and spaces where we can actually be really intentional about doing something? So I just think that if I was a volunteer who's been put in charge of helping, coach up some other volunteer leaders, number one, I'd want to just look at the calendar and say, hey, when can these things actually happen, and can we put them in and make them a priority in our ministry? So maybe you'd get the point leader to say, hey, everybody, we've got 2 or 3 volunteers here who want to just come alongside you. We'd love everyone to meet with them at least once every quarter, and we have some scheduled time for that. Or see if you could maybe, schedule it in before youth group starts where you grab one volunteer leader go for a quick walk before youth group, see how they're doing, check in. But once you put it on the calendar and you schedule it in, then it starts becoming a priority. And until then, sometimes it's hard to consistently get to. So if we're going to be intentional about it, I'd think about putting it in the calendar. And then the other thing I would look at is I would probably, and Jerry, you'll have even some more clear ideas on this. What are the 2 or 3 non-negotiables for every small group leader that you want to make sure they know, or tool that they possess? And then again, let's just make sure that we get it on the calendar, time and space, to really embed those in our overall kind of small group culture or team, so that we know that we can have some consistent type of like baseline expectations, or do a little bit of quality control, if that means. And again, so for me, if I'm in that, those are 2 things that become really important. And then the third thing, and Jer, I did this just a little bit. I was a bit of a fail because I wasn't around enough. But when I was working with another youth ministry, they asked me to work with I was volunteering. And so at the ripe age of 50, and help, they just said, hey, who are the small group leaders that you'd like me to meet with over the next couple of weeks? And so if they could be put in my space, I could reach out and make sure we made a connection. So those are a couple of things that where I'm thinking about. Jerry, you've got a few more there as well.
No, I want to affirm those. So yeah, number one, you have to find a fixed time. So this kind of formal coaching happens it has to happen in a particular space and time. So you define it. Is it before the meeting? Is it 1 hour each season? Whatever the thing is, if you're going to volunteer in a formal role coaching people, you have to know when that can happen, so that you clearly define that. And then,
Jer, let me just say to that too, 15 minutes can be really valuable and worthwhile. Yep. So don't think about, we have to block in like an hour or a morning. Go 15-minute Zoom calls. You could say, hey, I've got 3 15-minute time slots this week. Love to fill those up. That can be really helpful and beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be even outside of in person. Like, in my ministries, we've done written reports on the night, and so you report back how your small group went to your coach. And so that written report, if you want to copy that, just send me an email. It can be over text. There's different formats, but you have to define what's the goal, what's the timing for this coaching happens. And then you said, Sid, after that, even defining a little bit like the when or the parameters. So what can happen if we're not careful is that you get put in a coaching role, and it can be this all-encompassing, like you're now pastoring that person.
Correct,
and so that becomes overwhelming too, because you've got one small group leader who, when they meet, they want to do this as like their accountability group, or you're now their spiritual, mentor. And like, maybe that's the commitment, but maybe it's not. And it's actually okay to put, I think, a boundary around and say, hey, this coaching role that I'm in for you is specifically for the skills it takes to lead students to Jesus. And that's it. Totally. So your own spiritual formation happens in, community groups, or in our, this context, whatever the thing is, or maybe not, maybe it is an all-encompassing thing. But the point is let's talk about that. What are the expectations for this kind of connection? And then when it exits outside of that, and the person all of a sudden needs drives to youth group, well, I'm actually not the person that's going to give you a ride to youth group. We have a different system for that, or talk to the point later. So defining and clarifying that, I think, is really valuable, so that you can focus on what you're actually committing to.
Yeah, so good. Man, Jer, we love veteran volunteer youth workers. I mean, I think that's kind of the assumption we're making. And by the way, a veteran small group leader has been in it probably longer than 3 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, at that point, you have experience under your belt, and you should look to share that experience and support with other leaders. I think that's so important.
Yeah, we believe and hope for the post 3 years, but you also know the guys that get 6 months in and then think they're the experts. My favorite is always the guys that have been married for 6 months, and they're like, "Hey, I just feel like the Lord's called me to like write a book on marriage now, and maybe lead a marriage seminar, because I've learned so much over the last 6 months." And you're like, "Hey, stick it out, bud."
Hang in there, big shooter.
Yeah.
It's coming.
So small group leaders, your consistency over time is really valuable. And so don't lose sight of the fact that as you do this, you'll have lots of wisdom, and it is worth bringing to the rest of your team. And let's learn from each other. And a great way to do that is kind of in this coaching format. There's lots more. So if you got concerns, questions, you want to dig in more specific, send us a note. Anything last words, Sid, before we wrap this one up?
No, Jer, again, I just think we believe so much in the priesthood of all believers. Honestly, volunteer youth workers, you are at the tip of the spear. What you do matters so much in the lives of young people. We know it's hard. It's going to cost you something. We understand that, but it's so worth it. So bless you. And anything we can do to continue to celebrate, inspire, and equip you, man, it is such a pleasure to do it. So like we say, Jer, you make an eternal difference. Bless you guys. Bless you, friends.